right. Thank you for tuning in. 25 minutes before 11 o'clock. Every once in a while, we will have a musician who passes who feels like he or she had been a friend. Prince is one of them. I never met Prince, and I never saw Prince live in person, but he had the ability to reach me. I'll just say for me, and it was different than many musicians. I mean, there's only a few that I can say that about. John Lennon was one, felt like a friend. Stevie Wonder feels like a friend. Elton John, I guess, to a certain extent. And Prince was one of them. A lot of people will look up at Prince performing and they will say, oh man, he's a great performer. Oh, I love the way he sings. Look at that stage presence. To me, he was a great songwriter. This guy wrote some amazing songs, and wouldn't you have loved to have been in a studio just to watch those songs go from, you know, the paper version of whatever he wrote down to the amazing finished product. So we have somebody on the phone who probably knows more about this than I ever will, but I can learn from his book. His book is called Prince and the Purple Rain Era Studio Sessions, 1983 and 1984. And boy, that was kind of a peak in his lifetime, wasn't it? Duane Tudahl is the author. He's on the phone. He's an editor on multiple Emmy Award-winning programs, including Intervention, Unsolved Mysteries, Cops. He produced and/or directed documentary programming for the History Channel, the Gospel Music Channel, CBS, Discovery, Fox. It goes on and on and on, and I can't wait to see the book. Robin was just telling me we didn't get it yet. Duane Tudahl, good morning, Duane. Thank you for being on the air with us today.
Hi, Larry. Hi, Robin. How you guys doing?
Good. Where are you?
I'm in Los Angeles. I'm in Los Angeles, but I used to be in Florida. I have family and friends all over Florida: Daytona, Orlando,
Is that right?
Tampa. Yeah, I love Florida. It's like a second home to me. So that's when I knew I'd be doing a radio show down there. I was like, oh, this is great.
So when you were putting the book together, tell me about those 2 years, 83 and 84. Why those 2 years?
Well, and I agree with you. First off, I agree with you completely about Prince. There's certain musicians that do touch, your heart. They're able to convey emotions and give you goosebumps, by just the order of the notes they play. The reason why those 2 years is that's when he transitioned from being a cult star to the biggest star in the world. 1999 had just come out. It wasn't doing well when it first came out. And this is from January 1st, 1983 to December 31st, 1984. And it literally tells what he did in the studio and how his real life created these songs and what happened in his life to cause him to write these songs. The songs have heartbreak and love and hope, but also anger in them. And you can see literally what he was doing at every day to understand where these songs came from. And I grew up at a time when Purple Rain came out. Trying to explain that to people that weren't there is very difficult because he literally was the biggest guy out there. Biggest album, biggest movie, number one single. You don't have those three in the same week unless you're like the Beatles. It really is something to have had something like this. And a lot of his music was recorded by himself. You have When Doves Cry, him going in the studio, literally playing every instrument in the studio. Who does that? Nobody does that. And
many people, and those who do it may not do it well. I think that's part.
Exactly.
And it's
horrible.
Say it again.
I can't play an instrument. I could do it, but it would sound horrible.
But I think it's also fair to say to the young listeners that in 83 and 84 there was no such thing as there might have been digital recording, but there wasn't digital composition so much. Like now you can go on and you can write music note for note and have it sound like a symphony, if you took the time to do it.
Exactly. This is a guy who, the reason why he was so good is because he played constantly. He was always playing. And you don't get that good by not playing. You get that good by dedication. And once I realized that there was a story behind every song and the people that were there in the room were interested in talking. I talked to about 40 or 50 people who were there in the room when he's recording this, engineers and band members and singers and people like that.
Right.
I thought, how could I not write a book about this? Because, again, once he passed in 2016, all of his music became not difficult to listen to, but tough to listen to without filtering it through the fact that he's gone.
Right. Oh, I absolutely agree. Do you know what I wanted? Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say what I wanted to do was write a book that explained why he was doing some of this stuff, so that you could understand and listen to the music for the first time again, and with new ears, and go, now I hear what he's doing. Now, so that's what I hope this does, and some of the reviews have said that. So that's one of the things that I really wanted to do with the book.
So I wanted to just say something about him, and the words recording artist. I think the word artist, when it comes to music, doesn't always apply. That doesn't mean that people aren't good at what they're a good singer, for example. Let's just pick Celine Dion, for example. She's a great singer. Oh my gosh, and a great performer, but I don't know that she's a recording artist, because an artist has his palette. In Prince's case, it's the instruments, it's the notes, it's everything else, and he creates something. And it doesn't take away from Celine Dion to say, no, she's not a recording artist, she's a singer. It's fine, but he also was a singer, and he knew what he had. I think that the general public didn't know what we had in him.
I think that I didn't realize how big he was until he passed. And then I saw the world lighting up with the, monuments and everything turning purple. I always thought, I like Prince, and there's a couple of us that do this. And then you see how honored he was. And then you start to think back, and you go, wow, every time he went on stage, there was a standing ovation. Every time he played better than anybody. And you look at him, he's an amazing guitar player. But you forget that. He's an amazing keyboard drummer. Bass player. You don't get on the cover of Bass Player magazine, Guitar Player magazine, Drum magazine, and Keyboard magazine by not being amazing.
Yeah.
But he would go and do a lot of it himself. Now, granted, he also had a great band behind him. The Revolution was a fantastic band, and he handpicked them and said, "You're going to be on stage with me when I do this." And one of them had a great comment. Bobby, the drummer, had said, "You listen to a song like The Beautiful Ones or When Doves Cry. That's what you get when you put Prince in the studio by himself for 24 hours. And I thought, wow, that's crazy. Yeah, you're right. All the other artists may play something, but they may take a week to get their drum sound. Prince could do 2 or 3 songs in a day, and great songs. That nobody else can do that, and it blows my mind that he could do something like that. And I respected him even more once I started writing the book.
The book is called Prince and the Purple Rain Era Studio Sessions, 1983 and 1984. Duane Tudahl is the author. And I wanted to ask you about the book. Robin says it's a very, very big book.
Yes.
So where did you go to dig up the information? Did you have to speak to people who knew him, or how did you do this?
I spoke to pretty much everybody in that era that knew him. I spoke to the entire Revolution. I spoke to his singers, his other band members. He produced and wrote for The Time, for Vanity 6, for Apollonia 6, for a band called The Family. I found these people and went to them. Anybody that was in the room with him, I tried to get in touch with. And I talked to, like I said, about 40 or 50 of them. And then I went to the studio that he actually recorded in Los Angeles called Sunset Sound. And I went to them and interviewed them, went into the rooms that he recorded, and I asked, do they have the dates and the paperwork of what he did? And they said, yes, as a matter of fact, we do. And they let me have a copy of all the paperwork of every day he was in the studio. So I knew when he was doing this stuff, what time he was doing this stuff, who was there with him, and so I went and found those people and talked to them. Some of them had never talked before to the press. And the stories they told were heartbreaking. And I started writing this book about 20 years ago. So this was long before he passed. Actually, I actually finished writing the book a month before he passed away. And the toughest thing for me was going through the book and having to change everything from Prince is something to Prince was. And that was sad to me because It really hit me that we lost somebody who was so important and vital to music and had more to say. And that's the thing that makes me sad is he had a lot more to say. But this was a book about a young guy, 24, 25, 26 years old, who had the weight of the world on him, but he was able to create music that's timeless. I mean, every time I hear Purple Rain, I'm like, yep, that's a great song. Let's Go Crazy, I think, that's a great song. When Doves Cry, yep, great song. You were, written by a 23, 24, 25, 26-year-old kid.
Sure, yeah. Well, a lot of great music though is written by the songwriters who were young. And
the Beatles and stuff like that.
Yeah, and they never can outdo themselves. It's one of those strange things. Do you know? Okay, let me go back to the recording artist thing I said earlier. If you go to a movie and you're looking at a famous actor on the screen, the real artist behind that is usually the director, and not to take away again from the people on the screen. In the recording studio, quite often the artist is the producer. In Prince's case, was he the producer? I don't know this fact. Did he have somebody he worked with who was the label of producer?
No, he did it all himself.
I thought
he would be in there by himself, producing, writing, arranging, playing a lot of the instruments, and structuring it. But the songs were all written by him for the most part. He had some input from other people, but he'd credit them. And he was the first and the last person to be touching the music. He knew what he wanted. The sounds he created were from him, and he produced it and arranged it. And then when the album came out, he helped design the album, the marketing campaign, everything. The color scheme, that was all him. He was that hands-on on everything. But he also had very talented people around him, but he would guide them. This is where I want you to go. But he never had a producer in the studio with him, ever.
That's what I thought, but I didn't know for sure. So I want to. The focus is on 83 and 84. These were really big, good years for him. Could those years have happened, though, if he didn't have whatever happened before, which I'm assuming was not always so successful?
Well, when an artist has... usually an artist's best work is their first work or second work because they have something to say they've been practicing for years. It's amazing that Purple Rain was several years into his career, but he'd grown. He went, his first few albums did okay, got some attention, but they didn't get the big attention until 1999 came along. And then when 1999 came along, he kind of hit, and MTV started playing him. That was when MTV was just starting, and they didn't have a lot of black artists on there. Michael Jackson and Prince were some of the only black artists on there. And he kind of really opened doors for a lot of artists coming up. And they saw what he did, and he told his managers, after having a hit or two on 1999, I want to make a movie. I will not sign back with you managers unless you create a movie for me that my name is above the title. And they're like, dude, you've had like 2 hits. And he said, this is what I want. And he did it. And they got a script together, made the movie together up in Minneapolis, which is in the middle of the winter, tons of snow.
Wow.
And he had a vision saying, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And he surrounded himself with people that shared the same dream, and they did it. And it became one of the biggest movies of the year. The album was on the head of the number 1 album for like 26 weeks that year. And that's a great year for music because you had Born in the USA, you had Madonna, you had Huey Lewis, you had the Footloose soundtrack, you had Van Halen. It's a great year for music.
Right.
And he still had the number 1 album, for that. So
is that right? I didn't realize it was number 1. Can you talk a little bit about the symbol that he used, where the rest of us were saying the artist formerly known as Prince? When you do radio, you can't have a visual symbol. So where did that come from? What was that?
The symbol came later. The symbol came much later in his career, but he wanted. The stories were that he wanted to get out of his contract, so he created a symbol, had one commissioned, and created it, and went by that on everything. And I can only imagine how difficult that was to work with him when you had to call him Prince, and he was like, not Prince.
Yeah, right.
I would like to see his driver's license. I wonder what his driver's license looked like. But that was a thing that he did that he kept for a few years. And what's interesting is I think he thought he could get out of having a contract by changing his name, but that's sort of not how it works. But again, an artist is going to do things that are out there, and sometimes you look at things and you think, Stevie Wonder's album "Songs in the Key of Life." Some people say, "Wow, what's that?" And you have to have these things that happen in an artist's life to show you that they're an artist. And I think somebody like Prince really wanted to be an artist and made his career about his art, because he could have easily written Purple Rain for the rest of his career, but instead, within months of the album coming out, he came out with another album, another look, another album after that, and each time it was a different look and different sound. And that, to me, shows that this guy didn't want to rest on his laurels.
So who was his closest human? Was it a wife? Was it a friend? Who was his closest, I guess, person?
Well, he had 2 wives. He had 2 wives eventually, and I think they were very close. But I think his closest people were all people that he related to with music. This is a guy that spoke music, and if you also spoke music, you could be in his inner circle. If not, you could be his friend, but probably never be able to translate what he was saying, because the guy really was music. And I can only imagine what. I'll give you a great example. When he would tour, they would show up when the equipment is being set up, and he'd say, "Can we jam?" And he'd play a 4 or 5 hour sound check with the band, looking for music, and then they'd do the show. Another 2 or 3 hours. Then they might do an after show after that.
Oh my gosh! Really? Oh wow!
And then, or go in the studio and record all night until the next day, and fly out to the next thing and just make it. He loved music, and if you could keep up with him, you were good. If you couldn't keep up with him, he'd be like next, and he'd bring in the replacement. That was whether it was band members or friends or engineers or anything. If you could keep up with him, and he worked nonstop. You would be fine.
Does the book also have a counterpart for TV or some kind of a special documentary that you're working on or have already done?
There are. I make documentaries for a living. That's what I do, and so I can't went into this book thinking of it as a documentary. Not at the moment. We aren't doing a documentary about this, but there's a lot of documentaries being done about Prince at the moment. But we are not doing one about this yet. Hopefully soon. It makes sense. It makes a lot of sense, and I think that would be a smart thing.
Did putting the book together elevate your fandom, the level of being a fan, whatever that is called? I call it fandom. Did that change because of the book for you?
Yes, I had such a new respect for the guy, because I always thought, I liked him before that, it was the soundtrack to my life back then, and I always liked that. But once I started finding out all the stuff he did, for example, in the beginning of 1984, which is the second year of the book, he recorded parts of Purple Rain, an album for The Time, an album for Apollonia 6, an album for Sheila E., an album for a band called The Family, songs for Sheena Easton, songs for, part of Stevie Nicks, song for the Bangles. This is all within the first few months of the year.
I know. It's a lot of people don't realize all those names you just said. The song was a Stand Back. Is that the Stevie Nicks one that he... Stand
Back was the Stevie Nicks one.
Right.
Manic Monday for the Bangles. The next year after that, he did a song for Kenny Rogers.
Really? Which one did he do?
Yeah. A song called You're My Love. And it was on one of his albums. But he did music across the board for people, and you don't realize how many songs he did. Now imagine how cool it would be to be able to hear all those songs that he did, for other people. He has such a legacy of stuff, and knowing about the music, to me, made it more alive, made it more... there's a book called The Beatles Recording Sessions, and that is about all the Beatles stuff like this. Mm-hmm. And I read that years ago, and it made me respect their music even more when I realized the human side behind this. So when I wrote this book, I wanted to get the human side of his dedication and his love of music and love of people. The thing I found out also in the book was how much of a sense of humor he had, and some of that came out in his music, and personable he was with people when he wanted to be, and how giving he was. He had a big charitable heart.
Man, don't you hate the fact that he's no longer... He was in my mind, he was the best, or one of the very best Super Bowl acts of all the Super... Because that's not an easy thing to do, I would think. It's not an easy gig.
No, and with Super Bowl, look at the thing that was amazing. That is, you just remember him out on stage. You know, he had two dancers, and the band was in the back, but he was the guy out there. And it's raining, and he seems to not even be getting wet. Look at the video again. He doesn't even look like he's getting wet out there. And who can be in the middle of a rainstorm and not be getting wet?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. But when anybody else plays, they bring in Britney Spears and the Rolling Stones and all these, and you have 50 people up on stage. He was up there by himself. And you still think he was the best show.
That's
best
right.
Super Bowl ever.
That's right. Yeah.
That's the talent of this guy. That's, watch the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame when he's playing the guitar solo for While My Guitar Gently Weeps. And he's got Jeff Beck up on stage and not Jeff Beck. Sorry, I'm drawing a blank at some a bunch of people from the Traveling Wilburys and things like that.
Okay.
Oh, like Jeff Lynne?
Harrison tribute. Jeff Lynne, sorry about it, yeah, and Prince just does this 5-6 minute solo. That's just you can't not look at him.
Yeah.
That's the skill of this guy.
By the way, I want to say something to those people who will be listening to this in the future on YouTube, because I'm going to get this comment. I can't believe you didn't play Prince music as your bumper music.
Yeah.
Well, there's a reason for that. YouTube will block it, and then you won't hear this interview at all. So I would love to, but they have their rules, their copyright rules, and we have to obey them. Otherwise, we're not going to be anywhere. So how do we get the book? I think I found it on Amazon, didn't I, Robin?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it is on Amazon. There's two versions of the book. There's the hardback book came out last year, and I created a paperback, expanded paperback with about 30 extra pages in it, that has new information, new dates, new songs, new interviews. I wanted to give the people who bought the paperback a little something extra. But both are available on Amazon or Barnes & Noble, your favorite bookstores, and probably some bookstores you don't like too. You can find it all around. It's literally it's one of these books that you can go into a bookstore and it's probably there on the shelf, or you can ask Barnes & Noble to order for you. So
since you have developed such a fabulous rapport with the people that have worked with him throughout the years, I think Prince would have really liked you and embraced you.
I sure hope so. I wrote it with respect, and I wrote it with love, and I wrote it as somebody who got a lot. I got a lot out of his music. His music meant something to me. It is there when I was sad. It was there when I was happy. It helped me meet my wife. And it's music that I think is vital.
Have you gone to his home?
And, I've been to Paisley Park. Yes, I've been there a couple times. Yes, it's great. It's fun to see. And it's sad to see that he passed there, but it's fun to see that this man had such a dedication to music that he built a place in a cornfield, in a cow field, and it's now surrounded by a town that built up because of him. You look at what this guy, the influence this guy had on music, on people, on art, on style, on commerce, is second to none. And I hope that people see that when they read the book, that this guy was an artist and true to himself.
I loved this conversation, Duane. I think you probably could tell that. Thank you for being on the air. By the way, I noticed there's an audiobook. Does it include clips of the music or of the interviews?
No, it does not.
No. Okay.
Same thing as the same thing as you're not playing the bumper music.
Right.
No, it's the book is read by somebody. If people want to get a signed copy of this, they can go to DuaneTudahl.com, DuaneTudahl.com. They can also download the first chapter of the book from there if they want.
So, very good, Duane. Enjoy the holidays. Thank you so much for being on the air with us, and thank you for getting up early.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you, Robin.
You're welcome.
Have a great day. Thanks a lot, guys.
We'll be right back.
Bye.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala. Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios.
Freddy's Steak Burger, the cornerstone of the great American menu. Only the highest quality ingredients, cooked to order. Welcome to Freddy's Frozen Custard and Steak Burgers, the taste that brings you back.
Ah, say it again.
Freddy's Specialty Sundaes, classic American treats, made with freshly churned, rich and creamy frozen custard. Welcome to Freddy's Frozen Custard and Steak Burgers, the taste that brings you back.
Load it, haul it, dump it, mow it.
Get it
equipped for anything with a John Deere 3025E compact tractor from AgPro. It's equipped with a low price of $139 per month, and we've got all the attachments you'll ever need. Request a quote at agproco.com. Subject to approved installment credit with John Deere Financial. 20% down payment required. Taxes, freight, setup, and delivery charges could increase monthly payments.
Fox News, I'm Lillian Wu. Another name being floated to fill the president's chief of staff opening. Reportedly not interested, according to Fox's Blake Berman. A source close to Mick Mulvaney, the OMB director, would be more interested in Treasury or Commerce if that's where the president needs him. This a day after a top contender also said no.
Nick Ayers, like the man he was odds-on favorite to succeed, will depart as the year changes, just like John Kelly. Ayers, who is chief of staff to Vice President Mike Pence, said so in a tweet, thanking the president and vice president for allowing him to serve. His immediate plan, sources say, is to run a pro-Trump super PAC.
Fox's Gernal Scott. The High Court avoiding an abortion fight. Justices will not hear a high-profile case involving efforts by Kansas and Louisiana to strip Medicaid money from Planned Parenthood. This is Fox News.
Pros and a no start with Lowe's. Because at Lowe's, pros save every day on the materials and supplies they use most when they buy in bulk. That means you can get up to 30% off select in-stock fiberglass insulation. Plus, you can save time by ordering ahead online, and your order will be ready for pickup in-store. Stop by or visit Lowe'sForPros.com for details. So, Pro, now that you know, start with Lowe's. Minimum purchase required. Selection varies by location. U.S. only.
Indeed knows it's hard to find qualified candidates when you're hiring.
It's like finding a unicorn.
But when you post your job on Indeed, it's easy to find people with the skills you need.
Nurse practitioner, 4+ years experience, acute care certification.
Indeed has a huge pool of amazing candidates and screener tools that help you find your most qualified applicants.
Whoa, an entire short list of unicorns.
See why more than 3 million companies worldwide use Indeed to hire. Post your job at Indeed.com/hire. Indeed, the world's #1 job site. Source.com/score total visits.
Here is your 1-minute news brief. An Ocala man is behind bars for the murder of his estranged 48-year-old wife who went missing from the Holiday Travel RV Resort in Ocala. The Marion County Sheriff's Office is investigating a Saturday night double shooting at the Paradise Bar on North Highway 441 that left 2 people with serious injuries. A 6-year-old Florida child has died in a house fire in Mims, Florida. NASA's new Mars lander has captured the first sounds of the really unworldly Martian wind. A South Florida specialty sneaker store had to postpone the launch of a limited edition Air Jordan shoe at a nightclub after a crowd showed up and got unruly, resulting in the injury of a police officer. A lemur surprised a Florida Highway Patrol trooper when it crawled from a trailer being pulled by a pickup truck that had been stopped in Sanford. And 10 flights have been canceled from Orlando International Airport, most of them heading to Charlotte, North Carolina because of snow. And that is your news brief from The Source.
Freddy's Steak Burger, the cornerstone of the great American menu. Only the highest quality ingredients, cooked to order. Welcome to Freddy's Frozen Custard and Steak Burgers, the taste that brings you back.
Say it again.
Freddy's Specialty Sundaes, classic American treats, made with freshly churned, rich and creamy frozen custard. Welcome to Freddy's Frozen Custard and Steak Burgers, the taste that brings you back.
AccuSleep offers a safe and effective medical option for those who suffer from sleep disorders of all kinds. AccuSleep makes restoring healthy sleep patterns possible. No medication, no surgery, just good sound sleep. Mend your sleep so you can stop counting sheep. Experience restorative sleep at AccuSleep, the acupuncture sleep clinic in Ocala by calling 352-615-5566.
With us